You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the February 25th meeting for the Michigan City Planning Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaporte.county.org.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission this evening, Tuesday, February 25, 2025. We'll go ahead and begin the meeting. Mr. York, would you call the order?
Give me 1 second. Mr. Balling. I'm going to wait to mark him because he may show up on electronic because he typically does. Mr. Connolly. Here. Mr. Dabney.
Present.
Mr. DeMedici. Here. Mr. Granquist.
Here.
Mr. Hoffman.
Present.
Mr. Klinder.
Here.
Ms. Tejeda.
Here.
Mr. Warner.
Present.
And Steve Hale is absent today. He is in the midst of traveling back here.
We have a quorum. Thank you, Mr. York. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, Mr. York? Anything come up or any commissioners have any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any changes at this time. I do have Mr. Wallace here to speak about I know we talked about a little bit of a discussion, but I actually asked Mr. Wallace to be here to help lead that discussion in case you had questions. So we'll get to that in our new business.
And that'll come in under the new business and discussion on the ordinance. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Connolly. Yes. Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. DeMedici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Klinder.
Aye.
Ms. Tejeda.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Aye.
Motion approved.
The agenda's been approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes. Minutes from our regular hybrid meeting last month in January 28, 2025. You had a chance to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve or make any changes or corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Connolly. Yes. Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. DeMedici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Klinder.
Aye.
Ms. Tejeda.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Minutes from last month's meeting have been approved. Next item on the agenda is the petition. We have one petition tonight. Petition number 903-24, Pyramid Properties. They've been before us before. They are now tonight requesting a major subdivision secondary plat approval for Tract 1 of the Moore subdivision located at Moore Road / Highway 12. And the petitioner is represented by Attorney Novak, who is here. Mr. Novak, go ahead and present your petition.
Thank you, Mr. Granquist, and good to see you guys again, which feels like about the sixth time in the last 7 months. So I'll make this presentation briefer or more brief, but I'll still give just a touch of background since it's another meeting on another petition. So my name is Anthony Novak. As President Granquist indicated, I am an attorney in LaPorte at Newby, Lewis, Kaminsky, and Jones. Here tonight on behalf of the petitioner Pyramid Properties, Inc. Here with me tonight is their owner, Tony McCree. We've been here a slew of times for various reasons, all relating to one project, which is known as the Moore development, which will be a 40-unit residential, development at the intersection of US 12 and Moore Road. Most recently, we were here last month where we got final approval on the planned unit development. And we are here tonight to ask for secondary plat approval, major subdivision for Tract 1, which is there's going to be 2 phases to this development. This is going to be the first phase, which will construct 16 units, 16 townhomes of the total 40. We were here last with respect to the major subdivision on October 22nd. We had a 9-0 approval at that time, conditioned on 4 elements that I'm just going to really summarize. Updated basin design related to stormwater on tract 1. Tract 2 stormwater will be reviewed when tract 2 gets done. Number 3, prior to any sale of a unit, there'll be a conservation easement recorded. And finally, that a basin maintenance agreement would be developed and negotiated and approved between the city and the developer. As I indicated last month, we've gone through track 1 stormwater. That's been approved by Tim Warner, Al Wallace. Track 2 stormwater is premature right now. We got the conservation easement taken care of. We got the basin maintenance agreement taken care of. So ultimately, what we're asking for tonight is approval so that we can get that secondary plat done. And then we'll start moving forward with development in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Novak. Are there any initial questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, briefly, I understood you say it was going to be 15 units and the drawing says 16 here.
16. Sorry. If I said 15, I'm sorry.
Oh,
16
okay.
in the first.
Petition is here for a public meeting. It is not open for a public hearing. We've had that before. The purpose of the secondary plat is to make sure that it conforms to the previously approved primary plat. Attorney, on behalf of the petitioners, represented that they've complied with the requirements, conditions. So they're presenting that to the Plan Commission tonight to verify that it does comply with the primary plat as we've approved. Mr. York, do you have some staff reports?
Yes. I'm going to read, excuse me, I'm going to read the comments from other departments first, and then I'll read my staff report if that's okay with you, Mr. President. Our first comment is from the Water Department. The developers met the requirements set forth by the department, so the department has no issue with the current plan. Engineer comments, it appears all comments from the city engineer have been addressed. Fire department said they have no issues with the request. And obviously our sanitation department is here and they have expressed they have no further comments until we get to the track 2. Staff tonight, so this is my report from the planning staff. Case number 90324, parentheses 4, the Moore PUD, Pyramid Properties. This is a request for final plat. Staff analysis, and just to remind you, a plan unit development is an overlay district, is a tool permitted and regulated by Indiana code with standards intended to accommodate, among other factors, development on sites with significant natural features to provide the opportunity to preserve common open space and natural features, which I think with this project, you've seen the petitioner's commitment to kind of not maximize the site, but also work within the parameters of the PUD to really create something pretty unique at this location. The petitioner requested to receive approval of preliminary site plan approval for the Moore PUD and approval of the primary plat on October 22nd, 2024 at the Planning Commission meeting. And he actually received that with I think it was a 9-0 vote. The petitioner was then sent to council where the petition was approved on December 3rd, 2024. And on January 28th, 2025, the Moore PUD received final PUD approval from the Planning Commission. So tonight he's before us to request the final plat for track 1 subdivision. There were 4 conditions that must have been approved and adhered to. One was the applicant must provide the city MS4 coordinator reviewer an updated basin design, which he has accomplished, and worked hand in hand with their engineers and our engineers to accomplish that. Number 2, track 2 stormwater plan and design will be reviewed and approved at the time of primary plat to assure that adequate detention and stormwater is provided. So that would be reviewed at the time of secondary plat, at the time of when they get ready to do the track 2. Number 3, prior to any sale or offer of sale of any unit in track 1 or track 2, the conservation easement shall be recorded. That's been completed. Number 4, a basin maintenance agreement shall be completed and shall be added to the proposed commitments, restrictions, covenants, and so basically an agreement between us and the sanitary the developer in the sanitary district for maintenance of basin, and that was completed as well. So staff recommendation tonight, all the conditions have been met, and the staff recommends approval of the final plat, phase 1 of the Moore PUD.
Do any commissioners have any questions of Mr. York from the staff and department approvals? Our Plan Commission Attorney Hale is not present with us, but he has submitted his attorney report. I'll briefly summarize that. And it's petition 903-24 petitioner is Pyramid Properties, Inc. Petitioners here represented by Attorney Novak. And it's located on Moore Road, Highway 12, also known as parcel number 46-01-14-476-001.000-022. Petitioner has filed for a major subdivision approval to build residential townhomes and villas. Approval of the primary plat was granted at the Plan Commission's October 22, 2024 meeting. The petitioner is now requesting approval of the secondary plat. There are processes which we've completed through the multiple hearings and reviews with staff and the commission itself and the departments. And then the secondary plat is to comply with the primary plat and the subdivision ordinance. The Plan Commission is to make findings as to such compliance or non-compliance and then make a decision in the same manner as for primary plat approval. Approval of the secondary plat requires approval by this Plan Commission at a public meeting, but does not require a public hearing. As to approval of the secondary plat, the Plan Commission may approve it with certain modifications that would bring the application into compliance with the primary plat, if there is anything out of compliance, or deny the application on the grounds that it does not comply with the primary plat. The sole issue for our commission tonight is considering approval of the secondary plat and whether it complies with the primary plat and our subdivision ordinance. The record of this petition includes several documents and pieces of information. One, the application for approval of final secondary plat, Tract 1, signed by the owner. The secondary subdivision plat dated January 24, prepared by their surveyor engineer. Number 3, stormwater ordinance, and that's been submitted and provided. Stormwater management regulations, number of pages for that. Stormwater technical standards manual, dated January of 2025, and we'll be discussing some of those matters tonight. All the materials submitted by the petitioner as part of its request for primary plat approval. And then the planning department staff report and materials reviewed by the planning department staff and the different departments. This attorney report and any materials submitted tonight at the public hearing. That concludes Attorney Hale's attorney report, briefly summarized here. Mr. Hale, do you have any further comments or additions to that? Mr. York, I mean.
Oh, sorry. I was like, wait, Mr. Hale's in there. I do not have any further comments or questions. If there are any questions are there any questions for the commissioners of my report or anything of that nature? Okay.
Any final comments, Attorney Novak?
Nothing further. I would just like to appreciate your guys' help throughout the process. Councilman Dabney sponsored our ordinance, and it's a very exciting project. Tony's very happy to be doing it. So we thank you for all your support.
Thank you so much. We'll open up for a motion from the commission then.
Before I make the motion, I just want to comment that there were some turbulent times at the very beginning, and I want to thank you guys for sticking with this, and the planning commission as well, and just coming through, get this thing done and get started. As we all know, we need housing here in the city, and I'm looking forward to this getting going here. So
Great. Thank
this
you.
is nothing but a benefit for us in my eyes here, and thank you for sticking with it. Like I said, there were turbulent times at the very beginning. I remember that. And I'm happy to see this continuing to move forward. So
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a motion? We'll call for a motion.
Was that the motion to accept?
To approve the secondary plat,
Yes, second.
that it conforms with the primary plat.
Did he say second?
I think he thought your positive comments were a motion.
Yes, and I did not make an official motion. So let's go back and make the official motion for approval of the subdivision secondary plan.
Okay, that's the motion. Want to make yours the second then?
I'll second that one.
Okay, now we got that straightened out. Thank you, Mr. York. Want
Call for the
to call
vote.
for the vote?
So, Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Domenici. Aye. Mr. Greinquist,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Ms. Tejeda,
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
And with pleasure, aye.
Motion approved. Congratulations. Thank you for sticking.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Attorney
you.
Novak. Thank you, petitioner.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is old business, new business, and we will have some discussion here on this proposed a stormwater ordinance, some explanation for that. We're looking forward to some explanation. Mr. York, we have we'll introduce our speaker, a visitor here. Looking forward to maybe he'll comment something on the rational method and Manning's equation. I don't know if he'll get into some mathematics here, but
Please not.
this is a number of pages of the stormwater ordinance and some adjustment to the city code. So, Mr. York, go ahead and introduce the topic and our speaker.
Yeah. So, as I told you last time, we're trying to do another, we're trying to do a brand new, an updated and a new stormwater, ordinance. And right now the stormwater ordinance is, and I'm not going to get too far into this because Mr. Al Wallace is here with us tonight, who is basically helping us do this, helping the sanitary district do this. And you may recognize him in his previous role at Burke, but he is now an official employee of the city of Michigan City. And he is retired now. So congratulations. I haven't got to tell you that. But he is not retired. So he's here with us. And he's going to be discussing, I know you had some questions last time about why it is in the zoning code and the need to separate the two. And I want Mr. Wallace to speak about that because there is, I believe there is a reason to do it. And I want him to share kind of his thoughts as well. So without further ado, Mr. Wallace is here with us.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. We did have a 2-page handout that we placed at your chairs this evening to kind of help through this. Tonight's purpose of reviewing this is more informational. We do plan to come back to the Plan Commission next month in March for potentially official approval of the draft ordinances. This first handout I want to talk to you about real quick is the one with the kind of picture of the flooding on the front. And Purdue University for over 40 years has taken a lead role in stormwater management across the state, more specifically through the local technical assistance program. On the front page of this handout, we have the different bullet points on vulnerabilities and response. Just real quickly, one item under vulnerabilities I wanted to talk about is oftentimes we hear about the 100-year storm, which is a frequency of once every 100 years. We may get a storm the size of 6-7 inches within 24 hours. But what we've seen from an engineering standpoint, some of the really small storms, 1 to 2 year return, they have a very detrimental effect on our ditches because during those storms, the water in the ditch will raise and lower repetitively, more frequently, and that leads to erosion at the toe of the bank and sloughing in the ditches. So as engineers have recognized that these small duration storms don't necessarily lead to flooding, they lead to maintenance issues and ditches moving, which we do not want. So part of the effort to update our ordinance and technical standards is to address those smaller storms. So as we develop, we control the runoff from new development, so we're not negatively impacting our ditches on these lower storms. Also, the last bullet point of vulnerabilities talks about communities across Indiana must update local ordinances to incorporate the latest stormwater requirements from the new item, construction stormwater general permit, became effective late December 21. So all communities across Indiana are going through this process. Many have completed it. City of LaPorte passed their stormwater ordinance last August, and we're wrapping up here in Michigan City. And then under our response, the very last bullet point talks about one of our responses is we want to have the collection and organization of all stormwater related legal requirements into a single streamlined comprehensive document, along with detailed technical requirements organized in a companion technical standards manual. This will help both the development community better navigate the requirements and help plan reviewers better focus on major items. So rather than have stormwater requirements interspersed throughout the entire Michigan City Code of Ordinances, the individuals that help put together the model ordinance and technical standards are recommending put that all in one document. So as developers come to community, you give them the document, they have all the information right there. So kind of streamlining, organizing is one of the other aspects of it. The key driver is there's a mandate from item permits that we have to update the local ordinance. And on the second page, the back page of the handout, there's information, a lot of information. On the left-hand side, we give a historical summary that through Purdue, they've been producing documents dating back to 1981, the first stormwater drainage manual that provided guidance to engineers across the state on how to design and maintain ditches. In 1988 was the first model stormwater ordinance that Purdue helped create. 1989, erosion control sediment ordinances. 95, 08, 15, the drainage manual was updated. And then we get down to 2022 when the latest stormwater model ordinance and technical standards were put together. And if I could direct your attention to the top right of the page, we have a question: how were the 2022 updates prepared? Following past practice, the local technical assistance program worked with experts in stormwater management, IDEM, county surveyors, MS4 coordinators to prepare the 22 model ordinance and accompanying technical standards. Christopher B. Burke Engineering developed the initial drafts, followed by peer review and incorporation of comments. So significant human capital, experience, technical expertise were corralled by Purdue to come up with the model ordinances. In the center of this page, we have the model ordinance. There's 7 different chapters. It speaks about general information, how we prohibit pollution from entering our storm sewers, talks about stormwater quantity management, stormwater quality control. So this handout then kind of summarizes how this document was put together. This is about 6 different sections that cover in detail these 7 items listed under the model ordinance. So what communities across Indiana have been doing is taking this model ordinance prepared under the direction of Purdue and presenting it to their local communities. Within the ordinance, we would provide the names of the different city departments who would have jurisdiction in implementing the ordinance, and we may tweak a few things here and there. So as Mr. York said, previously when I appeared before you, I was working for Christopher Burke Engineers as a consultant to the sanitary district. I did retire, saw a job opening in the sanitary district, applied, was interviewed, hired. My first day with the sanitary district was January 13th. And my first order of business was to get the stormwater ordinance done into the sanitary board by January 23rd. We got the ordinance, technical standard all done. We had multiple meetings with city engineer Tim Warner, city planner Skylar York, city attorney Amber LePage, and the Plan Commission attorney Steve Hale. So on January 23rd, we were able to take the stormwater ordinance in its final form and the accompanying stormwater technical standards, presented that to the the Sanitary District Board of Commissioners, and they approved that. So that was the first step. So now we get to the complexity of why we're here before the Plan Commission, and that's this handout here, the second page. So what we did was kind of small print, but what we had to do was we had to look at the entirety of the Michigan City, Indiana Code. So there's how many chapters? Chapter 50, 110 chapters in the Michigan City Code. Plus, we have some of the Plan Commission related documents. Appendix B was the subdivision ordinance. Appendix C is the joint zoning ordinance. So in this first blue column along the left-hand side of the page, you can see there are 9 different sections of the Michigan State Municipal Code and subdivision standards in Appendix C, where currently all the stormwater regulations are interspersed amongst all those different categories. So in talking with City Attorney Amber LePage and Plan Commission Attorney Steve Hale, we're recommending on the kind of right-hand side here, all these red arrows, we're moving all the different components from all the different sections into one brand new section under Chapter 46, which is Environment. We're proposing a new Article 9, which will be Stormwater and Drainage. So we have to now go back to all the other sections, delete those references to the current language, and all that now would be incorporated into Chapter 46, new Article 9. So Attorney LePage has already taken the sanitary district approved ordinance and codified it into a new Article 9 that would go into Chapter 46. So all that work's been done. But what we have to do then is we have to go to Appendix B, the subdivision ordinance, and Appendix C, the joint zoning ordinance, and work through the Plan Commission, through public meetings, regular monthly meetings, to be able to remove language from current subdivision B and Appendix B and Appendix C, and then make those references back to the new Article 9. So wanted to come before the commission today to just kind of explain we're legally mandated, required by IDEM to pass updated stormwater ordinance, pass stormwater technical standards. We've completed that through the sanitary district. So now we're going through the remainder of the process. We're appearing before the Plan Commission today. Since the sanitary district approved it January 23rd, we did not have time to get to the Plan Commission at the January meeting. So we came here tonight, first available time for February. We'll be back in March because Attorney Hale, Mr. York, and I still have to go through some of the references in Appendix B and Appendix C and make sure we get those all done correctly to refer to the new Article 9. So we're going to be back in March to formally request approval of the Plan Commission to agree with this approach. If that is accomplished, then we have to go to the City Council and go through 3 readings, probably have a workshop with the City Council, review some of the current ordinance language, some of the proposed language of technical standards, go through those 3 readings. Once that ordinance potentially is approved by the City Council, we'll have to come back one more time to the Plan Commission to advise you of that, and then potentially go back to the sanitary district or if there are any changes through that process. So the main focus on the stormwater ordinance is we need to make sure we're adequately controlling stormwater quantity from development as we're taking grass areas, making them impervious. There'll be more stormwater runoff. So we have to control the rate of release of those. We had significant discussions about that on the Moore development. So I think you're familiar with that a little bit. And then secondly, we want to control stormwater quality because all of our discharges go into Trail Creek, which goes into Lake Michigan, which is the water supply for Michigan City and all the communities on the northern part of the state. So we take that very seriously. So kind of in summary, that's how we got here and the complexity of this interconnection where a lot of the language is in Appendix B and Appendix C, which is under the jurisdiction of the Plan Commission.
Mr. President, if I may add just a couple of things. I'm sorry,
Mr. York?
just a couple of things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Mr. Wallace also spoke about efficiency of navigating. This has a checklist component of it as well. The opportunity to really, I think the Moore kind of presented an opportunity to really kind of look at some of this stuff because it was such a significant development. And that's kind of where I think wheels start turning, and we were already kind of proposing this, and Mr. Wallace was working on it, and there was a lot of opportunities that were taking there. Thankfully, our developers were willing to help us do this and help us kind of comply. But it has a checklist component. Another component of it is the basin maintenance agreement. We haven't really had that in our rules before, to my knowledge, and I think that's really important when we're creating these shared spaces, especially in HOA situations or in developments where there's 3 or 4 outlots in one basin. We've gotten stuck in the past with maintaining those basins, or they've failed, and now who takes care of them? And that's the situations we're trying to avoid. Unfortunately, they're kind of like you have to have them. But those have been some of the past things. And so this new ordinance has a component of that in it. And then I think it just makes review of the petitions, things like the more, and also review of development petitions, meaning when they come in for permits. I think it streamlines a lot of those processes, and we have a very knowledgeable stormwater coordinator at this time. So those are just some additional comments.
And if I could add, what could help streamline the process as well is now communities across Indiana, especially Northwest Indiana, are adopting these same standards. So whether they're developing in Crown Point, Portage, anywhere in the region, LaPorte County, they'll be using the same design standards. So the engineer community helped put the standard together to protect our waterways. So they should be familiar with them, and we should be getting good stormwater plans as we move forward.
So that should help petitioners and developers as they work with the local engineers who are familiar with it to help make it more convenient, streamlined. And
yes.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. So some of these things that have been proposed in this new ordinance have already been incorporated into the more.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
excellent.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to express appreciation for the effort to improve the infrastructure so that our city looks good moving forward. And as a relative newcomer to reading the municipal code, double thumbs up to any effort to make it more cogent and straightforward.
One more comment. That was impressive. That
Well,
was a lot of work.
Longevity has its perks, so I've seen a lot, so help me condense it and make it concise. So hopefully that worked.
Yeah, I just like to add that it's great to see that we're gonna have some maintenance of our basins in the future, because when I came here a year ago, I was surprised to see all the basins that have been lost to history, really. That, besides some of our commercial businesses, you wouldn't even know there was a basin there. They've all been grown up with trees and things and don't have the storage capacity that they were designed with.
Right. And if I could add, that's not unique to Michigan City. We do have Northwest Indiana Stormwater Advisory Group where city stormwater staff and engineers get together. And that's a common issue across the region, across the state, where as a result of development, stormwater measures were put in place without adequate long-term maintenance. So with this ordinance and the technical standards, that will be corrected.
I have a question about the basins that have been not taken care of. What are the potential downfalls of that? Like what are the risks?
I think the main risk is we have to look at the water volume in those basins. So they were designed based on detailed calculations that we need X amount of cubic feet of storage in this basin. What is most problematic to the basins is if they do a good job and capture sediment in the basin and keep it from going into Trail Creek, then at a certain point in time, the basin fills up with sediment and it might not have, there's a safe factory built in. So it may be 5, 10, 15 years before there's enough sediment to start impacting the quantity, but that's the main issue is sedimentation. Kind of a separate issue is vegetation. So unfortunately, Phragmites are pretty prevalent in Northwest Indiana. It's an invasive species, those really tall plants with a kind of fan type looking tops. And if we go in there and remove all those, in short order, they'll be back. So we're trying to be judicious in saying, okay, the main purpose of these basins is storage. So if there's plant material in there that's not negatively impacting storage, what's the efficacy of removing these invasive plants that are going to be back in 6 months? So we still have some work to do from kind of a engineering environmental perspective on tuning in our guidance for maintenance, but our key driver on maintenance is sedimentation. So we ensure that we always have enough storage volume.
More question. Is there a process for surveying existing basins? And is there any action that can be taken retroactively to improve the quality of a basin?
Right. So in terms of surveying, there's many different options with the drone technology today where we could fly a drone over a basin and get detailed elevations. If there's kind of like a stockpile of sediment in the basin, we have computer programs that'll calculate how much volume is lost due to some of that. As far as kind of clawing back and having maintenance done, what we would have to do is go back to the point in time that basin was built and check the local ordinance to see what requirements and restrictions were in place at that time.
Thank you very much.
Roosevelt, we have been experiencing that through developments that already had a basin and now they've tore down the building and are redeveloping. Mr. Warner and Mr. Wallace have been really adamant about, yeah, you have a basin, but it's not functioning. It's 30 years old. So now you got to fix that basin and it needs to be calculated to hold what you're producing now, even though you still have it. And that's been pretty helpful. But I think having basin agreements and the new ordinance, I think it'll have more teeth in it.
Yeah, one of the basins that is most familiar to me right now is the old Steak and Shake, which is now going to be the Chick-fil-A. You wouldn't even known there was a basin back there. And it's like, okay, this has to be cleared up. I want a 15-foot green area around it that can be mowed and stayed clean so that people who come to the store can see if there's trash flying into the basin. Now the thing is full of shopping carts and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, we're beyond just sediment. There's other things happening to these basins when you can't see them.
Thank you very much.
I'd have a question because you mentioned an interesting concept, not just a basin, which is just a depression to hold either detention or retention, but you mentioned something about the ditches and is that along the roads or to what extent and how pervasive are these ditches? Is it just all along the roads or is it just in the developments or how are we planning to manage all that?
Yeah, a lot of the technical guidance on the ditches are in county ditches in rural areas, the different legal drains. We've seen a lot of degradation of those county drains. However, it may be a little known fact that within the corporate limits of Michigan City, about 25 square miles, we do have the remnants of 5 former county legal drains. Most of these are in the upper northeast side. White Ditch, Kimball Ditch, and 400 North, there's a legal ditch that's under the jurisdiction of the city now. On the west side is the Kinsel Ditch. So the ditches we're referring to are more probably about ditch bottoms of about 20 feet wide or so, banks that may be on a 30-degree slope about 10 feet high. So they are really critical, important conveyance factors. So when all of Forest Manor Village Green, the individual little storm sewers collect water from the roads. Those are all routed into the Strebel Arm or the Kinsel Ditch. And as all those flows come together during those little storms, that's where we start seeing erosion on the toe of the bank. So roadside ditches, maybe not so much. We still are responsible at the sanitary district for roadside ditches, but the erosion we're talking about are the bigger ditches, about 20-foot wide bottoms.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for the presentation. We look forward for further development and further assisting the city in adjusting the code and kind of streamlining it a little bit. Mr. York, any further comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to next item on our agenda is public comments. We have some public here. Anyone would like to make a public comment in general?
Good evening, Planning Commission, Scott Melland, 200 Kenwood Place. I broke my comments into two things. I thought there'd be public comment over this ordinance. My first question was going to be, does this ordinance streamline anything? And I'm happy to hear that it sounds like it does in great effect. It's not only required apparently by the state, but we're cleaning things up and I can always support that. So that sounds good. One question I did have, I also want to congratulate Mr. Wallace for joining the Michigan City team and the extremely expedited way he hit the ground running here to get this in front of you today. That's really rather impressive. And I think anybody who's into governmental efficiency can see, hopefully will see that. Sounds like the right guy for the right, in the right position. One question I would have, does that model ordinance, given today's, not just push for, green things, does it allow for greenscaping, swales, rain gardens and that type of drainage? And so it has been quite modernized, which is good. You want to give people options for that. And it seems like to me, basin maintenance, ongoing, yeah, you get agreements, but these basins are on somebody's property. It's privately owned. And if it doesn't work, I don't see why we can't just say code enforcement or whoever saying, hey, this is broke, you got to fix it. What recourse do people really have? In my opinion, if you get a notice from the city, unless you want to go to court and fight it and say, well, in 1955, there was no ordinance. I mean, it's infrastructure. If it's not working, it's got to be made to work. So that was my comment about the ordinance. And a broader thing on a second subject, I want to recognize that, say for two of you up here, you're all citizen volunteers. We have 2 city employees, 3 if we count Mr. Wallace. So I appreciate what you're doing. But the experience as illustrated by Pyramid Properties, it's really a mess of bureaucratic red tape and delay to get anything built. And I think we all recognize that. Now, there are needs for planning and good engineering and all that. There's a reason for it, but over time, we get this bureaucratic creep. And again, say for the 2 city employees, you're all unelected officials making these decisions that affect people's pocketbooks. We all know time is money. We all complain about affordable housing. Well, I think Mr. Tony from Pyramid Properties, I'm assuming he's closed on that property. So he's bought something and it's been sitting there for a year or so. He's been before this board at least 5 or 6 times, other boards several times. He's got to bring an attorney each time. We've got to do better, is my point. There's a big push at the federal level to streamline government. And I think there's a lesson there that we can do better than maybe it's being done up there. But we should see what we can do to be more efficient to accelerate development in the city. We've got a great wave of development coming. Mr. York used to be the planning director, and now he's head of redevelopment. Slash planning. He's still doing it all. We've got a great new city engineer. We've got a great new guy at the sanitary district. So we're getting a good team in place. But I would ask us, and we have a member of the city council here, what can we do to help speed these processes up where maybe steps can be combined? I mean, this is the 3rd or 4th planning meeting about this plat. First it had to be the subdivision, and then it was the pre-approval for the plan, and now it's for the subdivision again. I think that's something we should all look at to make Michigan City just a more enticing place for developers to come spend the development dollars, because we're all for good quality development.
Scott, and I will say that that's one thing we're doing with the stormwater ordinance by making it much easier for developers to get the answer in one place and not 9.
Yeah, clearly that's a good one. And having being able to build off a model ordinance, cleaning up our code. So there's nothing, if you've ever read legalese, there's nothing worse. The federal ledger is the worst. You have to read IC blah, 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 and go here. And then that one leads you over here. And it's how are you supposed to comply? That's how lawyers make money. So that we can eliminate some of that and speed up the process, it's good for all of us. And again, thank you for your service and trying to push the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance and your comments and observations here. Any other public comments? Any other comments from the public? Anyone online? Then we'll close up the public comments and then we'll ask commissioners. The commissioners have some closing comments.
Yes, quickly. We're looking for efficiency, what we're trying to do here. I mean, this leads all the way back to the mayor cutting $6 million in the budget. What we're doing here with, combining things to get things done a little quicker. And now we have software out there that's really going to help in terms of, people are obtaining permits. So the administration and what we're trying to do in, conjunction with the council and the mayor is to, address some of these efficiency issues. We hear, people complain about the inefficiency and, we want to make sure, we make the process the best it can be for people who want to come here to develop. So I agree with you in that. And we are seeing some concrete things happen to make that process go smoother. And so we do kind of turn that reputation around of it not being so difficult to work with the city of Michigan City. And I think that's going to benefit us in the long run. And all of these people are taking part in that. The city council, the mayor, and other departments are doing some things as well. So thanks for pointing that out. And there are some concrete things that we are doing to make us more efficient, and we need it.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just add as far as efficiency and helping in different departments get together. I don't know, Wendy, if you want to stand up, we've got a new public works director here in the city.
Yes, please introduce. Yeah. Do you want to come down here and introduce yourself? Thank you. Just jump right in there.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. Absolutely, Tim. Appreciate you being here and introducing me. And yes, I'm Wendy Bachet. I am the new Public Works Director, and I'm here to help. The idea is to streamline so many things and give essential assistance to city staff through processes. And streamlining the code is essential. And the other thing I'm going to say is it saves money. And that's one thing we didn't mention. By being more efficient, we save money, we save time, we can do more, and we can get more done. And that also makes people who are working a lot of hours and trying to put in a lot of time feel really good about what they do. So I'm really grateful to be here. It's nice to meet all of you. Like I said, take a load off Skylar and maybe to, help Tim and anybody else and stormwater. Seen stormwater in other communities. This is essential. It's awesome. It's going to make it a lot easier. And there's a lot of good other things that the mayor will roll out here in the next few weeks and talk about at State of the City. So look forward to working with all of you. And yeah, it's just started. So, and I saw you last night at the historic.
And as much as we're
commission.
introducing you here, could you mind giving us just a brief background of your service?
Sure, absolutely. I've been in planning and infrastructure development for 30 years. I also have a background in environmental, and I'm a certified planner. I spent 20 plus years working for Michael Baker Engineering as an environmental lead, working on massive projects all across the country. I also had a stint with the U.S. Department of Defense. I'm working for the Navy as a subject matter expert for a 2-star admiral. Came back home. I'm from Portage. My parents are still there, so I came back home a few years ago, and I actually did a stint at the city of Gary as well, which was really interesting and worked with a lot of great people there. And I met Mayor Angie, and now I'm here.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Sure.
And welcome to the city.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I do have a little follow-up comment and appreciate that. And that's one of the concerns that we have is the time that it takes for developers from their initial investment of purchasing property and all the planning that's involved. One idea, Mr. York, we might look into the possibility, at least from time to time, because so many of the meetings are once a month. And if there's a possibility as maybe the need arises, that we could have one every, in a couple of weeks, a follow-up meeting or a special meeting, so we can help speed things up for those developers and petitioners. Sometimes there's little tweaks or adjustments. They need to come back, and if they have to wait a whole nother month and then a whole nother month, takes a long time. So we might look into that. I know it would take an extra meeting for us to get together, but hey, we're here to help the city, help the development here, and it's just an idea that we could look into. So thank you very much. Any last minute comments? With that, we'll take motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everyone's in favor. Good night, everybody.